Hey guys, Jay here. Welcome to Models Memories Weekly, episode 57. Models Memories is a show about nothing and is filmed in front of a live studio audience. This is a show where I talk about my painting, modeling, and wargaming experiences from the week. Now you might be thinking to yourself, Jay, you live stream every single night and you put out 3 YouTube videos a week. How could you possibly have more to say? Well, I do. And here goes. This week was a pretty wild week because I stayed up for 24 hours and I built and painted this amazing knight. Just a regular old knight. Technically, it's the Knight Canis Rex, but not technically because that's the box to buy. Really, the Canis Rex is the only knight box you should buy if you want to build a knight because it comes with all of the options where some of the other boxes only come with certain sprues and not other sprues, but I decided to get the Canis Rex box so that I could have most of the options, and then I only built a couple of them. But I really do love an Imperial Knight, and I knew this before, but I rediscovered that staying up for 24 hours and painting isn't fun. It really stinks. It sounds super fun. Everything conceptually sounds fun. You're telling me that in one day, I'm gonna go from not having a night to having a night and it's gonna be awesome and it's gonna be cool. And it is cool, but in the moment, as soon as you sit down at hour 5 or 6, it's like, I would love to cook dinner or go for a walk or do anything else besides sit here and continue to paint. But I did it and it was super, super neat. And you can see the video, boop, boop, 2 days ago on Wednesday. But I really like knights. I think they're one of the coolest additions to 40K. I remember being little Jay in high school. I remember I skipped an assembly and I was hanging out in the computer labs looking at the Games Workshop web store. And the knight came out. It was Warhammer 40K 6th edition. 6th edition is when they added in a lot of the bigger stuff and the knights dropped. And I just saw this thing and I was looking at the 360 spinny and it was pretty epic model. You know, everybody thought that the Tau owned mechs, but then the Imperial Knights came out and they just dominated. What a super, super cool model. Also, you should follow the instructions because there's a few moments when I was building this thing where I just was not looking at the instructions as hard as I should have, and I put this little hood piece on last. And you can't put the little hood piece on last. I had to grind and carve a bunch of it away and then slide it inside of there, and it's glued a little bit crookedly, and I think if I look at it too hard, the barely anything super glue bond that it's attached with is gonna fall off. I mean, really, if I just did this and gave it a little shake, I'm sure it would come right off. Also, another pro tip. I saved all of these little handrails for last. Just glue them on. You would think it would, I thought in my mind it would make painting harder, but actually it didn't save me any time with painting. And it just led to very carefully having to super glue these on, and it was a big pain in the butt. And I wish I had just gotten it out of the way while I was actually building it. It did not help me even slightly. Because all I ended up doing was I hand primed them black and then I just dry brushed them with some silver. And that option would have been completely available to me after it was all done, assembled, and painted. I'm definitely not opposed to doing more challenge videos or trying to do interesting things with speed painting or speed building, but yeah, I just need to maybe plan a little harder, prep a little harder, meal prep, just try to do some things to make it a little bit easier on myself. Because it is a fun format and an interesting thing, but boy, those videos tend to get away from me a little bit. But I have another knight. Now the question, do I make an entire knight army? Probably, but not right now. Also, pink and purple, really, really fun color scheme for knights. I don't know if I've seen it around the web before, but I could paint some more knights like this. I think really though what I would want to do, I'd really love one of the tall knights from Forge World. I think that would make a wonderful centerpiece. And then maybe even I don't really like the Titans from Forge World. I think they're kind of cool. My favorite's the Reaver, but they're horribly expensive for what you get. And they don't look like fun to build. This wasn't fun to build. I'm not that big a fan of building models, and this was an absolute slog to build, especially since I'm a perfectionist and I want to fill every gap, and I I puttied and sanded the little armor connection point that is 100% covered by these leg armors. Did not need to do that, did not need to waste the time. There were efficiencies I could have done to make this a tiny bit easier on myself, but you know, this wasn't that fun to put together. A Forge World Resin Titan. Ugh, that just looks like no fun at all. So I think I'm gonna break from YouTube tradition and not put together a big ol' Forge World Titan. And then once I do, please clip this moment and then send it to us. In other Games Workshop news, this one was a little bit of a surprise to me, but Games Workshop kinda nuked the Dark Eldar this week. I was pretty shocked and surprised, but it happened. And I don't wanna say that they did it in a really sneaky way, but you wouldn't know it if you just casually peruse the Warhammer articles like I do, cause it's hidden in an article called Sunday Preview, Dive into a New Chapter of Warhammer Underworlds. And so, you know, for some reason that title made me think, oh, that's a Warhammer Underworlds article. I'm not gonna read it because I don't play Warhammer Underworlds. But if you don't look at this article, you wouldn't know that a lot of models are moving into Games Workshop's range rotation. As our range of models continues to expand, we have to make some room from time to time. A number of items from Warhammer 40,000 will soon be rotating out of the range. These include terrain, orc characters, Tau accessories, and an array of Drukhari monstrosities. They're not gone for good, however, and will return in due course. I would argue, is it really a rotation if we don't know when they're gonna be rotating back? Like, if they said that, oh, all of the Dark Eldar stuff is going to be available in the first quarter of every year, I would say absolutely that is a rotation. If, you know, it's just they're gone now, but we pinky promise we'll bring them back, and then they don't do it for 50 years, did they really rotate them? I don't know. I definitely appreciate that Games Workshop has to do something, because I doubt that, you know, especially at the rate that Warhammer is expanding, I doubt that it's an option to just keep every model in stock and available forever. I understand that something has to be done, but the range rotation is frustrating because of the lack of information on what is happening. And, you know, it would also, I feel like, not have gone amiss if maybe there was a Warhammer community article that said, new models coming to Warhammer range rotation. Take a look. And so far, the things that they've rotated out of stock hasn't been, like, you know, super eye-watering, like, oh my goodness, how could that model go away? I think the only model like that is maybe Gabriel Seth, the Flesh Terrors captain, because it's the only Flesh Terrors model, and so people who want to do a Flesh Terrors army need Gabriel Seth. I mean, to be fair, that's, you know, 0.1% of gamers, but, you know, they need their Gabriel Seth. But this one kind of shocked me. As I said, they've a little bit nuked the Dark Eldar, because rotating out of Games Workshop's range right now is all of their Finecast models, which is actually kind of huge for the Dark Eldar. It's 11 models, and that's kind of gonna hurt a little bit. I think that the Dark Eldar from Games Workshop are like the pinnacle of what a Warhammer army should be. They only have something like 30 entries in their codex, but I think it's a really, really tight, solid army. I know. And it's a little bit Games Workshop's fault, and it's a little bit our own fault of like always wanting that new cool thing. Like, yeah, there's a bunch of things in the Necron Codex, but what have you done for me lately? And then they come out with 13 new models in 2020, but it's like, yeah, but I still feel like, you know, there was no new Necron model this year yet, so come on, Games Workshop. Whereas technically every model you don't own is fresh and new and exciting for you. I think sometimes when Rangers just get tons and tons and tons and tons of models, it's great, but it's also a little frustrating. Like when model ranges expand to epic proportions, you know, obviously the big example of this is the Space Marines with, I'm pretty sure there's 2.5 billion units in the Space Marine Codex, and a lot of them are not quite self-evident what they are. You know, you've got guys with jump packs and big guns. Are they fast attack or are they heavy support? You've got, 10 trillion units in the elite section, and it kind of, a new person looking in, or even an old person looking in, is like, what does a Space Marine army look like? Because the Space Marine army can include anything. There's tons of troop options, tons of fast attack options, tons of heavy support options, tons of elite options, way too many elite options. And I think the Dark Eldar army is a really, really good example, especially since it hasn't changed that much over the years. It's just a really tight, efficient army where you can really have every model rolling around in your head and be like, this is the Dark Eldar and this is what the Dark Eldar has available to it. Although they have a few less things available to them. All of the Finecast models are rotating out, which kind of stinks. The Dark Eldar Finecast models, they're not incredibly old, and they look really, really good. The only caveat I would say to that is the Dark Eldar were getting their characters in a time when Games Workshop let their painters go all out on individual character models, and all of these models, like the Urgal and the Clawed Fiend and the Medusa and the Mandrakes, are painted like way beyond anything 99.99% of wargamers are capable of. They're unbelievably beautiful Golden Demon Award winning paint jobs, and I've seen a lot of these models in person, and they don't look that good in real life. I remember, was it last year or the year before that we got a new Lilith Hesperx, and there was a whole bunch of people complaining that the new model looked like trash compared to the old model. And really, a lot of it came down to the paint job, because I've seen the old Lilith model, and it is a weird, angly, chunky, not beautiful model, but the paint job was beyond gorgeous, where the new Lilith model is painted like average heavy metal style, which seems to be the way they do things now. Everything gets painted pretty good. Really, the heavy metal style isn't to show off painting, but to show off exactly what you're getting in the box. That is what they are painting towards, and they're painting so that everything looks really, really good together, so that if they hand it off to the photographers to put together some sort of a scene for White Dwarf or for the Warhammer community, all of the models look really well together. Because, even if you took models from my collection, you would see some models are gorgeous and some models are weird looking, and everything has completely different basing scheme that would look really awkward on certain terrain boards. But the Warhammer Heavy Metal team is designed to paint the box art. And these models are painted far above the box art. But it is still sad to see them go. The Slith. The Slith. What an amazing model. I think it comes in 7 resin components, and it's a model this big. I get that it's a nightmare, and I get that we should probably move away from Finecast, because Finecast really is poopy. But it's wild. It's wild to see the entire range of Dark Eldar go. It'll be interesting to see how Games Workshop handles stuff like this, because at official events that I don't particularly care about, and official Games Workshop tournaments that I don't think matter, they have rules that you should have the model that is the model from the game. And so, what happens if you want to rock up with, a whole bunch of Urgals and you don't have Urgal models? And Games Workshop doesn't sell Urgal models. What's a gamer to do? I mean, I would say that the solution is just buy proxy models, which was what everybody was doing anyway, because these models are also horribly expensive. And really, 11 models have disappeared from the range, but 5 of them are the Beastmaster and the Beast that the Beastmaster can take. And I know for a fact, because I've seen a whole bunch of whips of people's Dark Eldar armies, that nobody really buys the official model from Games Workshop, and everybody goes and finds proxies, because you can find some really, really cool stuff out there that is far better than what Games Workshop offers. Like, the Beastmaster, $20. Chimeras are like $30. Clawed Fiend, $20 more. Some Urgals, $20. $20 for one Urgal. And the biggest joke is probably the Razorwing Flock. 4 really kind of ugly looking Finecast birds for $20. very few people were actually putting together a proper Beastman or Beastmaster horde. So if we got one new plastic box that just came with a new Beastmaster and a bunch of beasts, that would fix half of these models that are disappearing from the range. But I feel like some models are gonna hurt a little bit. Mandrakes are super, super cool models. The Lamian, the Poison Master, the Grotesque. The Grotesque is a model I see in most Dark Eldar armies. It's a little wild to see it vanish. You know, I mean, hopefully new plastics are coming out, although every day I become more and more frustrated with the Codex style of releases because we just got the Dark Eldar Codex not that long ago, and so usually when Games Workshop introduces new models, they try to have it coincide with the Codex so that they don't have to publish rules in weird places. And so if they were to come out with new model kits, chances are they would come out with new rules to spice them up a little bit and get the interest, get the hype train rolling. And so with the Codex already having come out, I can't imagine we're gonna be getting new Dark Eldar models anytime soon. I've never once in my entire life ever seen in person or on the internet somebody actually paint up a Drukhari Clawed Fiend, but it's a little sad to see it go. Supposedly it's not gone, it's coming back, but is it really gonna come back? I don't know. It's just super duper bizarre. I don't know what the solution is. I don't know what Games Workshop's planning. No one does ever about anything. Because that is just how Games Workshop operates. I wonder, because Games Workshop does like to put out character models because they can sell one tiny little sprue for like $30 to $50. But I wonder if there's something to selling HQs and heroes in packs. For a very small amount of time in 2nd or 3rd edition 40K, they did sell these boxes that came with all of the available heroes and villains. There was a Space Marine box called like Heroes of the Imperium. They came with a bunch of different Space Marine and Imperial Guard HQs, and then there was like foes of or like heretical heroes, and that came with a whole bunch of the Chaos Space Marine heroes. And boxes like that would be good and bad. Bad because you don't necessarily want them all, and because they would probably be kind of expensive. But it would also be good because you would probably get some sort of a deal. I mean, if you're used to buying one HQ for $30 or $40, but then they come out with a whole box of them for the price of a Games Workshop box, which is around $60, I don't know, all of a sudden it's looking a little bit better. And I think that would be a really, really good way to take care of stuff like this, where you've got the Lamian, the Medusa, the Grotesque, the Slith, and models that maybe wouldn't be huge sellers on their own or wouldn't be the most valuable models to put a lot of assets and time into. All of a sudden, if they all come in the same sprue in one box that you can just sell to Dark Eldar players as, here are your Dark Eldar heroes, and you buy the box and then you just have them, maybe that is a way to counteract the bloat of huge model ranges. I don't know, it is interesting. And it'll be interesting to see how this range rotation things work, because obviously some of this range rotation means we're rotating this out of stock, and then before we rotate this into stock, you're gonna see these models get refreshes or new versions of the models in plastic. And some models I feel like are not gonna come back. The generic Necron Lord with Resurrection Orb. Are we ever gonna see that model ever again? You can already get a generic Lord with Resurrection Orb in the Catacomb Command Barge, and really you can get it from the generic Lord you can just buy comes with a Resurrection Orb, so you can just buy the plastic kit, and then it'd be a pretty darn easy kit bash to take one of the Necron Lords from Indominus that are floating around. There's a billion of them floating around. I think you can still buy them for sub $10 on eBay, and just get yourself an airsoft BB and glue it to his hand. Boom, you've got a generic Lord with Resurrection Orb. I can't imagine why they would ever bring back the Finecast one. I have it, it's nice-ish. It's not as nice as the plenty of newer ones they've come out with since. Ooh, we'll be sad to see the Necron Overlord go. The kind of interesting one where he's kind of crouching and he's got like his staff in the back. That model is kind of neat. Although once again, it kind of is from that age where Games Workshop was letting their painters do a really, really too good of a job to the point where it barely shows off the model that you're buying because the paint job is so good. A lot of the Finecast Necrons are not worth buying. I have a few of them and they're rough. And they're not even rough because Finecast is a bad material, because they've pretty much worked out all the kinks. Finecast right now is about the same quality as Forge World resin, which is also to say not the greatest thing ever. Every company that I've bought resin from that's not Games Workshop has given me a better quality product than Games Workshop. But the problem with Finecast resin, and I don't know who they worked with to switch their manufacturing from pewter to Finecast resin, but they should be fired. Maybe they've already been fired. The idea that you have to glue gates all over the model to make sure that the resin flows properly is not true. You don't have to. Maybe a couple of extra like air escapes would be necessary, but they just take triangles of plastic and glue them right over important details on the model that you have to look at, and you see a Necron Overlord covered in Cheetos, and then you have to take your knife and carefully carve them away. Oh, it's terrible. I have a Nemesis Zandrek, and oh, what's the worst? The big Necron Lord, Immotech the Stormlord. I have an Immotech the Stormlord, and I took one look at it, and I just put it right back in the drawer because it's terrible. He has this giant claw, and every single finger on the claw has these annoying gates that I would have to carve away and then like recarve in the Necron detail. It's terrible. I don't know who told them that you need to do all of this work to these models to get the resin to actually flow into them. Completely untrue. Completely untrue. It's absolutely ridiculous. But anyhow, 11 Dark Eldar models are leaving the range, which is sad to see them go. I think there was a certain magic to the Dark Eldar range where you had a bunch of really nice plastic kits. They have a really, really nice Comet Patrol. Getting 2 Raiders in one box is a lot of fun. That's how I judge the Comet Patrols, because I don't really care about like the massability or like, well, I wouldn't want to buy this box twice because, well, I don't want to buy a $150 box twice ever. So if I just get one box and it comes with a fun amount of stuff, and you got your 2 squads of infantry, your HQ, and then 2 raiders, that is a fun box in my opinion. That is a Christmas morning box. Whereas some of the other boxes I definitely cannot say the same about. The Grey Knight box, Grey Knight box kind of stinks. There's a couple of other models going out of stock. Some of them I don't really think matter that much. Some Forge World stuff. The Tau Empire Farsight Enclave shoulder pads. These were interesting to me because they've always been terrible. They're not well sculpted, and I think the Farsight are one of the coolest things in 40K. Terrible, terrible symbol. It doesn't look like anything. Like, if I was in charge of creating the Farsight Enclave, I would have maybe made their symbol be not Tau-y, because the Farsight Enclave have kind of rejected the Tau doctrine and are kind of going their own way. So wouldn't it have been more interesting if their symbol was like a tree or something natural, something that wasn't very Tau to really set them apart? Because I feel like anyone who's not hardcore into Tau seeing the Farsight Enclave symbol would just be like, hey, look, Tau, and not get that it's something different. Also, the resin sculpts were terrible on those. Those can get rotated out, and I don't think it'll matter if they ever get rotated back in. But yeah, poor Dark Eldar. If you're a Dark Eldar player, please post in the comments how you feel, because I feel like I'm feeling for you. It hurts a little bit. And even though, I wasn't planning on buying any of these models, and I probably won't ever buy any of these models, I don't know. It's a little sad. It's a little sad to see one of the best ranges that Games Workshop makes get a lot smaller. And speaking of Dark Eldar, I was starting to feel a little bummed out about the Dark Eldar, and so I needed to bring myself back up. And so I hopped on over to the Daka forums, and I read, once again, the 48-page whip by Mechanicum Joe of one of the most beautiful Dark Eldar armies I have ever seen in my entire life. The link is going to be in the description below. Please go check it out if you just want to see some amazing Warhammer in process. I love it so much. This is an army that I look at on occasion. I remember back in high school looking at this and being like, That is the height of Warhammer. But it's just such a beautiful color scheme, such a beautifully finished army. And I love the Daka Daka forum because you just see people's brain matter spilling onto the page and him talking about, oh, I want to add another unit of Hellions. And so, you know, I bought 3 boxes and here's how I did all of the basing and here's how I tested out different paint schemes and different base coats to see what would work. And you see pictures of the models before they're painted and after they're painted. It's just one of the coolest things I've ever seen. There's a couple of really, really cool armies like this on Daka Daka where you just see people's work and it's so cool. And it's super inspirational. And I don't know actually if he ended up adding any of the models that are rotating out of stock into his army. I think he might have actually proxied everything because that's really what people do. Nobody is spending $200 to add a Dark Eldar Beastmaster to their army. But I just love it. Please go check it out and have a look around and get inspired like I was, because it really is a beautiful army. And fairly simply done. I mean, it's a lot of steps go into his base coat, but then once he's got his base coat done, he can kind of just lay everything else on top and it all works out. I also just think, once again, the Dark Eldar are one of the best things Games Workshop makes. They're super cool. I think their models just kind of work. And speaking of models that just kind of work, you know what models just don't work? The Genestealer Cults. I am on my 3rd paint scheme with the Genestealer Cults, and they're just kicking my butt. They are so difficult to put together. I'm painting some of these guys on stream right now, and they're turning out fine, but I want them to just like come together and paint up fairly easily and simply, and they just don't. I don't know if I'm overthinking it. I don't know if the models are overthought, but there's just so much stuff. You know, he's got his head, he's got his armor, he's got clothing, he's got boots, he's got pouches and grenades and sticks of dynamite. He's got a pistoled holster. He has his auto gun or whatever weapon that the neophytes are equipped with. And then he's got Genestealer Cult symbols. And it's by the time I've picked out all of these things, the model is kind of a mess. So maybe I need to go back to the drawing board on them a little bit, because I feel like there's some way to simplify it and get the paint scheme under control a little, but I don't know. I'm just struggling. I'm just struggling to get these guys painted up. They're tough. They're tricky guys. I tried with my new guys a magenta undercoat, which worked beautifully on their skin and their Genestealer Cult carapace parts, but it didn't do me any favors when it came to painting their clothing and armor. I don't know if maybe the trick is to do kind of a not just make a Marco Frassoni style of maybe selectively spraying with the airbrush and then applying oils or highlights. But yeah, Genestealer Cult are tricky models to pull off. I mean, every single one is so detailed and so intricate. I don't know. But one day I will figure it out. But it is not this day. The models I'm painting on stream right now they're turning out fine, but they're taking forever and they're not everything I wanted them to be. But you know what? This night is everything I wanted to be. It's super cool. And you know what else is super cool? That's right, our Patreon. Over there, you're gonna get access to some behind the scenes, voting on what models I paint live here on YouTube, like these Genestealer Cults, access to 1 extra episode of EOB a week, and tons of super cool terrain STLs. And if that's not your Jimmy Jams, if it doesn't flim your flams, we also have merch. Link in the description below. But that is what I worked on this week. The Dark Eldar went away, and that brings a little bit of a tear to my eye. And yeah, thanks for watching.